It's the Kyle Hyman Show on Redeemer Radio.
This is Kyle Hyman, and joining us from Ignatius Press is the president and CEO, here to talk about the YOUCAT for Kids, Mark Brumley. Thanks for being here.
Hey, good to be with you, Kyle.
So we have a bunch of resources these days for kids and for youth. Do you think if all of this was available when you were a kid growing up, do you think your faith journey would have been any different?
Probably. And of course, I'm a convert, so I grew up as not as a Catholic. But I mean, it's true to say, I think if Catholics were better formed in their faith when I was growing up, that I would have been evangelized sooner.
Yeah.
So, yes.
We have had several different YOUCAT iterations that have came out. Can you talk a little bit about the history of the YOUCAT and what is currently available before we get into this new one?
Sure. There are a number of YOUCAT titles. YOUCAT stands for Youth Catechism. It was put together many years ago by Cardinal Schönborn in response to the desire of Pope Benedict that young people engage the content of the Catechism of the Catholic Church. So if you get the big green book, Catechism of the Catholic Church, you'll see that's obviously not aimed at teens.
Sure.
And so there was much discussion about this, and the young mother said, that the Catechism was great, wonderful, but really didn't address teens. And so Cardinal Schönborn, as a response to that, put together a group of teens who used the Catechism of the Catholic Church as the basis for creating YOUCAT. So YOUCAT covers basically the same material as the Catechism, although it's obviously much shorter. It's written in a more readily readable style for young people. And of course, it's illustrated with pictures and drawings and all that, contemporary photos and all of that kind of thing to draw in the teen reader. So YOUCAT is really aimed at teens. There are a number of other YOUCAT-based resources, like DOCAT, which is a book on the social teaching of the Church, which applies the Catholic faith and moral teaching to the social issues of our time. And there's also a confirmation program, YOUCAT Confirmation, which is very great, useful for young people, just kind of giving them an overview of the Catholic faith, which is what you really need,
sure,
among other things, for confirmation. And then there's a teen prayer book, YOUCAT prayer book. And now, of course, we've just released this YOUCAT for Kids, whereas YOUCAT was aimed at teens, this is really aimed at tweens, the kids that are in that sort of fourth grade to sixth grade age group.
Mm-hmm. And with the original Catechism of the Catholic Church, it was very thorough and covered really, most of what you could possibly want to know about Catholicism and the teachings of the Catholic Church. Very thorough. When you're looking at doing this for kids, when you say fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, how much of that content are you able to still keep in there? And what percentage of the Catechism do you think is represented?
Oh boy, that'd be hard to say, because it's not just a matter of pages, but you're trying to reduce the concept to something that's more accessible. Yeah. So I really wouldn't know offhand what percentage of that content, but it tries to be as thorough as it can be for the age group. So obviously you're not going to go into the details of divine circumcision, with a fourth grader. Uh-huh. But you're going to talk about the Trinity and how Father, Son, and Spirit are present to one another in the Trinity, how they're united in one, in relationship with one another, which is the essence of what we mean by this term divine circumcision. So there's an effort to stay faithful to the four pillars, which is basically the creed, the sacraments, the commandments, and then prayer. So those things suffuse both the original YOUCAT and YOUCAT for Kids, but they're translated into terms that younger people can follow, language they can more readily access.
Yeah, how hard is it to simplify the teachings of the Church to make it accessible for children without losing the truth behind a statement or a teaching?
Well, it is challenging, and the thing is, you don't want to try to, even when you're communicating the truth of the faith to young people, you don't want to try to do it just in a book. It's not as if there's any book, even the Catechism of the Catholic Church, that is the be-all and end-all to catechesis. So what you want to do is give them the foundation in the book, and then you supplement it by, what you do if you're talking about in a classroom setting, you supplement it in a classroom setting. You're talking about in school, in parish school religion, or even in family situation. So you have to distill it when you're talking about a textbook, but then you're going to have conversation and discussion outside of just the reading of the textbook.
So one of the things that you did with the original YOUCAT and this one, the YOUCAT for Kids, is similar. It has a lot of questions in there, which are questions that your teenager would ask in the case of the YOUCAT, or questions that your young child would ask in the case of the YOUCAT for Kids. Can you talk about some of those questions? Like, what are some of the most common questions that kids would have that you address in the book?
Well, questions about, who is God? What does it mean to call God the Creator? Who is Jesus? What does it mean to say that Jesus died for us? Questions about the church. Why the Catholic Church as opposed to other churches? How come, when I pray, maybe sometimes it doesn't seem like God is hearing me? Those are all kinds of things that YOUCAT for Kids covers. Obviously, again, not going into the level of St. Thomas Aquinas and Summa Theologiae or something like that, but in a level that's very accessible to young people. I should mention that we have those kinds of questions and answers in the main part of the text, and then if you go down towards the bottom of the page of the text, you'll see there's material there that's not really aimed at young people. It's aimed more at teachers or parents to help supplement the material that's in the upper portion of the catechism. So you might have a famous person identified in the bottom, as is the case in YOUCAT, where you have these little sidebars with pictures of people, famous people, and so on. Well, in this case, you're not necessarily expecting the fourth grader who's using YOUCAT for Kids to read that detail, or some of the more detailed theological comments at the bottom of the page. Those are for the grown-ups going through the material with the kids. So that's, again, this idea that you have the simplified material up top, but you're going to go in more depth with the kids in responding to their questions, using that bottom material.
Which I think is a really interesting strategy. We're talking about the YOUCAT for Kids. We're talking with the CEO and president of Ignatius Press, Mark Brumley, and it really is not just a book for kids, but as you're explaining it here, this is for families. And how do you anticipate the book being used? Is this something you don't just hand it to your 9-year-old and say, hey, I got you this gift. You should read it for 10 minutes a day. Do you imagine parents reading it to or with their children? Is that the idea?
Yeah, I think that's the idea. And, there's nothing wrong with giving kids gifts, but you want to make sure that when you're giving them a gift that is aimed at evangelizing and catechizing them, that they use it. So, I know some parents have better relationships with their kids on these kinds of things than others. So I think a good goal would be for a parent to take one thing maybe once a week and go over it with the young person. Start with prayer, start with the creed, and have the student read it aloud. And then, the parent can interact with what the student has read, what the student has said, or bring material, again, as I say, from the bottom of the page where it goes into more detail, to ask the kid about what's been read. And in that way, you don't want to make it just simply about reading something aloud. That's helpful to some degree, but you want to have an interactive element. You want to have a conversation. So you're really using the book as a sort of springboard for conversation.
I just love this idea so much because this is the perfect book for the age my kids are right now. And so I know that as parents, we're supposed to be the primary educators. And so really to empower parents to do that, because we don't, like so many of us are just, I don't know how to teach these things to a little kid when they ask them these complicated questions. So they're like, I don't know. Hey, let's go look it up in the YOUCAT for Kids. And we can go right to that chapter. It's such a great resource to have.
Yeah, and then of course, it's very graphically dynamic, lots of drawings and cartoons and photographs. And so, again, those are ways to help keep the kids' attention focused. And you can ask questions about the drawings or the graphs or the pictures that are in the catechism as well to help foster conversation.
Yeah. And are religion classes at the Catholic schools and religious ed courses at the church, they probably already have a curriculum that they're following to go through a lot of these different teachings and stuff. Is this something that you see being used in that setting, either to augment what we currently are using or to maybe even replace it?
Well, I wouldn't see YOUCAT for Kids as a replacement for, a robust catechetical program in a school or in a parish. It's more of a complement, a supplement, or even a distillation of something. What should be going on in our classrooms is the kids should be covering the material from the 4 pillars. Now, different ways you can do that, but because they're covering that material, what that means concretely is that they're going to be points of contact between whatever religion series they're using in the classroom and YOUCAT for Kids. So it can be either a primer in anticipation of covering material in the class, or it can be a review that distills what's been discussed.
And do you see it more as a reference tool or as something that you would read cover to cover?
I think YOUCAT, which is aimed at teens and older teens and young adults, is more of a reference, although you can use it. There's a study guide we have. You can use it as I have a little course on YOUCAT. But YOUCAT for Kids, I see less as a reference, just because kids in that age group tend to use reference books less, and more as something that, you would read through with them and say the course of a year. Of course, you can use it as a reference too, but I think it's something that more readily engaging as part of the process of faith formation for young people. So I see it fitting better with a program of catechesis.
Sure. Well, what is next? Do you have any idea what is coming from the YOUCAT for the future? A little preview?
Yes, we're coming out with a YOUCAT book on confession, how to go to confession. So we think it's going to be really helpful for teens and help them do a good job of examining their consciences, and after they've made their confession, to think well about what they've confessed and doing their penance to grow in the spiritual life through going to confession on a regular basis.
Any plans for a YOUCAT toddler? That's that.
I don't know.
I'm looking for that right now too.
Get the YOUCAT Challenger. I don't know that we want to go in the direction of the catechetical equivalent of Teletubbies.
Yes. Yeah, or you could go YOUCAT cat. A nice catechism cat, for your cat. So there's all different options. Yeah. I'll leave it up to you.
There you go. We'll leave it up to the Spirit and see let's see what he decides.
Awesome. Well, where can people learn more about all the different YOUCATs that you have available?
Well, they can go to their local Catholic bookstore. I always encourage people to go there first and ask for YOUCAT and what YOUCAT materials are available. Or they can go to Ignatius.com online, our Ignatius Press website, and there are all kinds of information about YOUCAT resources, things of that sort.
All right. Again, this is the YOUCAT for Kids. That's spelled out YOUCAT. YOUCAT, one word, 6 letters. YOUCAT for Kids. Thank you so much, Mark Brumley, for sharing it with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. God bless you guys. Keep up the good work.